The Merchant of Venice, Act 2, Scene 2. This scene is about social stigma, the shamed, disgraced, or humiliated members of a society. In this scene, Lancelot and his father are perceived as being ridiculous. Because they are poor and have very little education, it is viewed as mere folly when they try to put on airs to impress their betters. Their incorrect word usage or malapropisms create a verbal confusion, and with various antics like the basket of stinky fish, they are seen as comic interlude, clowns of slapstick humor. But where poor Lancelot gets to join in with the greater society is with the stigmatization of the Jews. In this scene, Lancelot's conscience is pulling him in two different directions. One side wants to run away from his master, the Jew Shylock, and he calls this temptation a fiend, pulling at his elbow. It speaks to him and says things like, "Use your legs, take the start, run away." But the other side of him scorns running with his heels and persuades him to budge not. But then he realizes that the struggle is futile, because whether he stays or whether he goes, either way, he is ruled over by a fiend. For he says, if I stay with the Jew, my master, he is a kind of devil. In the medieval world, Jews were seen as demons. During the time of the Black Death in Europe in the mid-14th century, nearly half of the population of Jews were killed, for it was believed that they deliberately poisoned wells and caused the spread of the plague. There are many examples from the medieval world that spread this demonizing of the Jews. One was a Corpus Christi play performed for the pageant of the Eucharist of Christ. In it, Jews were depicted as dancing around the cross at the time of the crucifixion, celebrating ritual murder. And in Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, an enormously popular book in medieval England, and one of the very first books ever to be written in English, a Christian boy sings a Hail Mary song as he walks along a Jewish street. Satan whispers to the Jews and encourages them to get rid of the boy. Hiring a murderer, his throat is slit and he is thrown into a cesspool. When his mother comes in search of him, looking house to house, the Jews lie to her, saying they know nothing of the boy. And in Shakespeare's own time, a very popular play, The Jew of Malta, has a Jew speak. As for myself, I walk abroad o' nights and kill sick people groaning under walls. Sometimes I go about poisoning wells. The play The Jew of Malta is not a tragedy but a farce. Just as the poor were put on the stage and mocked for their simplicity, Jews were put on the stage so one could revel in their diabolical cruelties. The poor were one-dimensional characters, buffoons and clowns, And the Jews were also one-dimensional characters, villains. Stage Jews wore costumes of red wigs and beards, associating them with the devil, and big false noses that quivered at the smell of pork. But stigmatization is not just for laughs. It leads to prejudice, and it leads to discrimination, and it can even lead to murder. When people are reduced or seen as caricatures, the dehumanizing process begins. And it was Shakespeare's challenge to rise above his time. When it comes to Shylock, his Jewish creation, modern performances try to give him more justice, and in doing so, he can come across as a noble figure of pathos and dignified loss. And in a way, Shakespeare exposes the hypocrisies of these in-group / out-group divisions in society with the close of this scene. In showing how Graziano's bad and humiliating behavior finds its way to acceptance just so long as you are one of them, a Venetian Christian